American Fiction is written and directed by Cord Jefferson, and it follows Jeffrey Wright, who plays this writer that hasn't had a successful book in a very long time. In fact, I don't think any of his books have gained any serious major success. Meanwhile, a lot of other writers are releasing books that gain major success, but also happen to fall into major black stereotypes. So under a pen name, Jeffrey Wright's character decides, you know what, I'm gonna write literally the worst, most exploitive book that features all the worst black stereotypes possible. And sure enough, this parody essentially becomes the greatest thing he's written, except people don't recognize he made it as a joke and are taking it as legit literature. So with a concept like that, and from watching the trailers, I wasn't super excited for this movie because it looked very obvious and it almost looked to be pandering to a lot of social issues. However, I was surprised to find out that this movie actually criticizes that very notion. I really connected with the film and really related to it on its discussion, not just about writing, but about art in general. If you've watched any of my other reviews, which, let's be real, you haven't, you'll notice I repeat a lot of the same words, and what I look for in film is authenticity. I can't say that there is a particular genre I don't love. I think any movie has the capacity to be great. You'll notice the angles I critique movies from is more from a level of, is this authentic? Did the artist or director have something they were trying to say here that they needed to express? I hate films that pretend that there's something they're not for the sake of appearing as good. To be not just any film, but any good work of art, you know, shouldn't be trying to be good necessarily, but trying to just be a self-expression, trying to be something that the artist needs to get out of them. And Jeffrey Wright's character has a similar approach to art, where he's making stuff that is good and honest, but the comedy of this film lies in its critique of the social zeitgeist media literacy. And honestly, this movie was really therapeutic in a lot of ways for me to watch, in how it pokes fun at literally everything I hate about not just Hollywood, but what many people think that audiences want to see, and what many people think they want to see. And I think this movie is actually fairly double-sided. It has moments where it critiques that perspective as well, and it raises some very fair points about why can't we make stuff that caters to a certain audience, even if it might be sending a certain message. It kind of raises the question, what's the harm in that? So it goes without saying that I find the themes of this film, I find what it's trying to say, to be extremely resonant and extremely well done. But for being a film following a writer, I have to say that the script of this movie might be my favorite script I've seen in any movie from last year. And God, I just sincerely hope this movie gets at least a nomination for Best Adapted Screenplay. And while I can't say the presentation of this movie is necessarily unique in any way, like, I would say it is a very well directed film, especially on an acting level, and especially considering that this is Cord Jefferson's feature film debut. This is a wonderful debut. I think the real heart and soul of this movie lies within the words. And luckily, the performances carry those words through exactly how they need to. This film has so many great performances. While I wasn't super excited for this movie, I was looking forward to it for Jeffrey Wright alone. I think he's a great actor, and God, he is wonderful in this movie. My only critiques of the film really just have to do with certain moments that follow the family drama. While eventually I was on board, it took me a little bit to get fully invested in every single character. And honestly, for the first 30 minutes of the movie or so, I was like, this is a really good movie. It's fairly entertaining, but it hadn't quite hooked me until it started getting into the main premise of him writing this book. Because before that, while I was entertained, it was nothing I hadn't seen before. And honestly, and this is so funny, this is gonna say a lot about who I am as a person. The worst part of the movie was the fact that despite the rest of the sound design being really great, and especially the music choices being extremely awesome, the film decided to unironically use that door opening sound effect. You know the one. That one. Maybe it's just my autistic OCD kicking in there, but it immediately brings a movie down just a little bit whenever I hear one of those overused sound effects in something. And those are things you don't notice unless you watch a lot of movies, or if you are an editor yourself and have dealt with audio. But obviously all that can be forgiven. And also, while I think the ending of this movie is really clever and says a lot about resolutions in storytelling, I think if the film ended about 5 minutes before it did, it would have been perfect. And I think the movie even acknowledges that, because it does get a little meta there for a minute. I think every every bone in this movie's body is completely self-aware, except for maybe with the use of that door opening sound effect. But yeah, I really loved American Fiction. I didn't think I would love it necessarily, but yeah, I really did. It spoke to me a lot as a writer and an artist, and yeah, I can't wait to watch it again, honestly. Overall, I'm going to give it a very strong 8 out of 10.